27 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football off season, and we are moving on now to the Air Force Falcons, a team that was a very solid team a season ago. In fact, ended up going to the bowl game and beating Louisville in that bowl game there as well. So this is an Air Force team from a season ago that has a lot of pieces coming back, offensively, defensively. Yes, they do lose some of their better threats at the wide receiver position, and they do lose some guys on defense whose names that you will relearn or learn here in a little bit. But for the Air Force Falcons, is this a team that can start to compete, or I should say compete yet again for a spot in the Mountain West Championship game, or will Air Force take a step back from where they've been the past couple of seasons? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I am doing your favorite team. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when that your favorite team gets uploaded. But chances are I've already done it. I have a lot of playlists on my channel. Make sure you hit subscribe. Go check out all the playlists I have for you on my channel. And for the Air Force Falcons fans out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot more than I do. So if you feel like I missed something and you want to add something, please leave it in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to hear what you guys have to say. Air Force 2022, let us discuss. My fourth-ranked team in the Mountain West Conference coming into the 2022 college football season. The Air Force Falcons were a 10-win team last year. They were 10-3, 6-2 in the bowl game. They were 9-3 in the regular season with that bowl game win against Louisville. Air Force able to have a 10-win season from a season ago. And statistically even, this was still a good football team. 423 yards per game with around 31 points per game. One of the better offenses in the Mountain West. And this was not only one of the best defenses in the Mountain West, but one of the best defenses in the country. 288 yards per game allowed with only 19 points per game allowed. They played a very good brand of defense last year, did Air Force. And while they are losing some of the guys off that defense that you see now, they have a lot of good guys coming back. And we'll discuss those in a little bit, but we got to know what they're losing first. First, they are losing a quarterback out of that room, but it is not their starter. It is Warren Bryant instead. Had only 7 pass attempts last year, 58 yards with only a single touchdown a season ago for Warren Bryant. So you do lose him out of the quarterback room, but it's not a huge loss. Otherwise, you lose a running back out of this room, Elijah Robinson, who only had 29 yards last year. Your bigger losses on the offensive end come at the wide receiver position. You lose your two biggest receiving threats on this team, and that is first and foremost Brandon Lewis, who only had 21 catches last year, but in those 21 catches had 3 touchdowns, and this is the stat that will blow your mind, 619 yards. If you're not very good at math here, I'll do it for you. That's an average of around 29.5 yards per catch. That is an insane number, and Brandon Lewis, I think, is moving on to the NFL. I think with the Titans, although correct me if I'm wrong, but Brandon Lewis going pro. Micah Davis has also gone off this team, was the second leading receiver, had 221 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 catches a season ago. So you lose your 2 best receiving threats off this team. You also lose some guys on the defensive end. I'm talking guys like Jordan Jackson, 7.5 sacks a season ago, along with 41 tackles, as well as a depth piece, and Kenny Nagayama. But Jordan Jackson is a huge loss on the defensive end. You could argue was their best defensive player a season ago. In the linebacker room, DeMonte Meeks is gone, as well as Ethan Erickson. So a couple names there that are going to be leaving that linebacker room. DeMonte Meeks had 3.5 sacks a season ago with 36 tackles. And then the defensive back group, Milton Bugg, who had 12 passes defended last year and was the 4th leading tackler. Corvin Taylor, who was the 2nd leading tackler a season ago, also led the team with 3 picks. And James Jones. A couple other names that are going to be leaving this defense there as well, but more depth guys than anything else. When you look at talent that is coming back on this team, man, do they get a lot of key pieces on offense back. Yes, Brandon Lewis, Micah Davis are gone, but you still return Haaziq Daniels, who had 1,184 yards, 50% completion percentage, exactly flat on the nose, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions a season ago, and had 734 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground, did Haaziq Daniels. But the biggest rushing threat coming back is none other than Brad Roberts. And you probably have heard his name before, but in case you haven't, let me remind you of what he's capable of. On 299 attempts last year, had 1,000 356 yards and 13 touchdowns for the Air Force Falcons a season ago. Was very, very good for this team and should be good again for the Falcons in 2022. Also some other names that will be back there: Emmanuel Michel, Omar Fatah, as well as a running back wide receiver duo in DeAndre Hughes. So those are some other names that you're going to see rushing the football here for this team. Hughes was actually the third leading rusher a season ago, had 510 yards and 3 touchdowns. Michel, the fourth leading rusher. Fatah, the sixth leading rusher. So lots of talent coming back in that sense. Again, more of a triple option style offense. But if you want to know about pass catching threats, we'll look no farther than these 3 names: Dane Kinnaman, David Cormier, and then Kyle Patterson at tight end. Those were your third, fourth, and fifth leading receivers last year, respectively. They're all coming back for this team, as well as when you look at the defensive end. On the defensive line, Christopher Herrera, who had 44 tackles, 3.5 sacks a season ago, comes back, as well as Jaden Thurgood, along with some other pieces on the defensive line. Vince Sanford, who was the third leading tackler and the sack leader last year, had 9.5 sacks, as well as other linebackers like Alec Mock and T.D. Blackman. Some other names coming back on this team: Alec Mock was a top 5 tackler, T.D. Blackman a top 11 tackler on this team. And in the defensive back position, Trey Taylor, who was the leading tackler, had 62 tackles, 5 passes defended the season ago, as well as Camby Goff, Jaden Goodwin, and some other names coming back for this team. So getting Daniels, Brad Roberts back is huge. They do have some nice pieces coming back on the defensive end, although you could argue they are losing some of their better players by the likes of Jordan Jackson, Milton Bugg, Corbin Taylor, among some others. But this is still going to be a talented Falcons team in 2022. As we take a look at their schedule this year, and there are a lot of interesting games here on this schedule, in my opinion. We'll get there when we get there, but first, a little bit of a brief overview as we start off, as usual, with non-conference play. You got a game against Northern Iowa, game against Colorado. Both of those are going to be at home. Now, Northern Iowa, usually one of the better FCS teams. Colorado, I don't think is going to be a very good team this year. In fact, possibly could be the worst Power 5 team out there this upcoming season. But Colorado, I think, is capable of making that game against Air Force competitive and closer than the experts predict. Otherwise, you have games for the Armed Forces teams. You got the game at home against Navy on October 1st, and a neutral site game, I believe, in Arlington, Texas against Army, the Knights. So then when you take a look at conference play, you got road games against Wyoming, Utah State, UNLV, and San Diego State to cap off the year. And then you have home games against Nevada, Boise State, New Mexico, and Colorado State. So kind of diving in a little deeper into this Air Force schedule. Their non-conference games are not that tough, in my opinion. Probably should be able to beat Northern Iowa. Probably should be able to beat Colorado. And I'm even going to say you probably should be able to beat Navy. I don't expect anything out of Colorado and Navy this year. And while Northern Iowa is usually one of the better FCS teams, Air Force is definitely a much more talented team than the Panthers. So those 3 games I don't think are going to be a problem. It's that game against Army that I think proposes a lot of challenges, and that is an Army team that I love coming into this year. Army, I think, is a team that can go ahead and win 9, 10, possibly, if everything goes right, 11 games this year. I really like the way that Army is built this year. I like what Army has, and I think Army can be a solid football team in 2022. In fact, I think they can be a great football team in 2022. That is going to be a fun game to watch in Arlington, Texas. In conference play, well, there are some interesting ones, right? On the road at Utah State, they have Logan Bonner coming back, and even though they're losing a lot of wide receiver weapons, they're bringing in a lot through the transfer portal, as well as some good defensive talent coming in there as well as what is coming back. It's a Utah State team that went and won the Mountain West last year, and I think they can do it again in 2022. That's going to be a very hard game for Air Force to go on the road and win. And heck, another tricky road game on the road against San Diego State to cap off the year. These are 2 very, very good defensive teams, and 2 teams right there that at the end of in that game right there could have some say in who ends up making a conference championship game from their respective divisions. When you take a look elsewhere at some of the more tricky games on the schedule, again, that home game against Boise State's jumping out of you there as well. Boise State usually one of the better teams in the Mountain West Conference. But also, I would not take Nevada lightly. Yes, I know they lost a lot, but that's still a team that can push for a spot in a bowl game. Colorado State, well, they added a lot of talent this year. That's a team that can push for a bowl game. Even the road games like Wyoming and UNLV, who I don't think are going to be fantastic teams this year, but Wyoming capable of pulling off an upset or two this year. And UNLV, I think, has the chance to pull out games that they make close and competitive. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook, tell me predict a team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see you winning the game. Notice there are none. There aren't even games in orange, but in case there would be for any of my other videos, there are games that I don't necessarily see you winning, but hey, it is college football and upsets can happen. Yellow, your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for the team on the other side of the ball. And games in green, I have you winning. So Northern Illinois, my apologies, Northern Iowa, have you win in that game. Colorado, Navy should be able to win those ones in non-conference play as well. When you look across conference play, they should be able to beat New Mexico at home. That's not going to be a very good New Mexico team. I'm thinking they're going to be able to beat Colorado State at home, but the Rams may be able to provide a little bit of a challenge of their own. That's a Rams team that you can't sleep on in 2022 with Jay Norvell there as that head coach. Lots of talent there on that Rams team. UNLV, again, if that game is close, keep your eye on it because UNLV could be able to pull that one out, but I see Air Force being able to take care of business there in Las Vegas. Otherwise, that Nevada game there, they get that game at home. It's on a Friday night. Think they should be able to get that one done. But the game that I think they have to be the most wary of is that week 3 game there against Wyoming on the Friday night when they go on the road. I know Wyoming is losing a lot of talent off of this team. Xavier Valladay is gone. Isaiah Nair is gone. The only 2 quarterbacks that threw a pass for this team last year, I believe, are gone. So that's a Wyoming team that's going to be looking to fill in the gaps, but a team that can prove to be competitive this year. So if I were an Air Force Falcons fan, I'd watch out for that game. But let's turn our attention now to all the games that are in yellow. Utah State, as I've said, I think is going to be a very tricky game, and I'm leaning towards the Aggies there in that one. They do have Logan Bonner back, and all they've been talking about in that Utah State program is Logan Bonner's accuracy and how accurate he has been in camp and in practice, and you've seen it on tape there as well. And yes, he does have a new wide receiver room, but I think that wide receiver room can be really dangerous this year as well. So Utah State on the road, watch out for that one. That's going to be a tricky one. Boise State at home is never an easy game there as well. I think Boise State's going to be really good again this year. Air Force has got to watch out for that one. And the neutral site game against Army there as well. Possibly what could at the end of the year prove to be their toughest game. Again, I think Army's a team that can go ahead and win 9, 10 plus games this upcoming season. It's an Army team that I like a lot. And then that road game against San Diego State, 2 defenses that were really good a season ago. Now, San Diego State has a lot transferring in on that defense there as well. So that will be an interesting game to watch at the end of the season and could have some major impact on who ends up making the conference championship game, as will that game against Utah State and the game against Boise State there as well. This is an Air Force team that has a lot of talent still on it, but I have a feeling that this Air Force team may be a little upset prone this year. So when you look across those games there in yellow-green, I think Air Force is maybe going to end up dropping 1, if not 2 of those games. And I'm looking at the Wyoming game. I'm looking at the Colorado State game as potential games that they could drop. I have this Air Force team at 8-4 coming into this upcoming season. So a little bit of a step back from where they have been. I don't think the defense is going to be as good as it was last year when they lose guys like Jackson, Bug, et cetera. But I do like the talent that's here. I think Daniels can have a good year. Roberts can have a good year. This defense, I think, is still going to be good. It's an Air Force team that may come up just short of a trip to the Mountain West title game. But there you have it. There are my thoughts on the Falcons this year. Still going to be a good team. 8-4 is what I got them at. Let me know your thoughts on the Falcons in 2022. Like, comment, subscribe. It helps support the channel. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.